Hello, this is Mouse Jacobs for DeBarra spoken word in Clonakilty, West Cork, Ireland. And I am speaking with Cónal Creedon, really privileged and happy to speak with him. He is in Cork, I think you're in Cork City?
I am indeed, Mose, and thanks for giving me a call. Much appreciated.
Because he's going...
If I had known I'd comb my hair, I forgot.
Oh, your hair looks beautiful.
Yeah, right.
Mine doesn't, actually. Okay, the hair. You're going to read for us on the 23rd of November 2022 in Clonakilty.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to it. Great. Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, you have written quite a few. How many books have you published, actually?
About 6, I think, or 7, maybe. They're all different things, really. So they're not all novels. I've only two novels written, collections of short stories, play. And in fact, plays. I've written a few plays, and they're published. And then I sort of drifted into sort of history stuff, like the Immortality of Iveleary was one. And then more recently, there's this one, Art Imitating Life, Imitating Death. But the reality is that they're all in a funny way. It's when now I realize it. I make documentaries as well and all that kind of thing. But they're all in a funny way, sort of memoir. Like, even though it's written as fiction, I realize I'm not too interested in narrative at all. I'm interested in sort of figure out what's going on in my head and around here. Like, so everything I do, like the documentaries, even the history stories, they're very connected to this little bunch of streets I live on.
Yeah.
And,
where I mean, you don't still live on Devonshire Street, do you?
I do, absolutely.
You do?
Like
where you were born or where you grew up?
My great grandaunt used to live here. Like, we were on the same street as ever, right? But it's you can hear the digging. There's a machine there. There's constantly stuff going on here, building and stuff, right? But in another way, the fact that it's constantly changing is really the fact that it's still the same, because it's forever been changing, So like I don't have a sense that it should be kept in a glass case. Like, I love the fact that there's constant change. And like when I was growing up here, all the families from around here would have been, interesting enough, they'd have been sort of country people from West Cork or North Cork or whatever, slightly different to, say, another inner city area like Levees Quay. That would have been mostly inner city people. Like, we'd have been considered country folk, in an odd way,
And when did your specific family members or ancestors move into the city from West Cork or from?
Would have been over 100 years ago, really.
Okay.
Would have been my great grandaunt Julia had a shop here. She used to run it for her brother-in-law, actually, my great-grandfather, and then my father came in, and they were always in and out. The shop was called the Inchigeela Dairy, and we're from Inchigeela.
Okay.
So, but on this street at that time, there was the Iveleary bar up the street, which was Iveleary is another name for Inchigeela. I don't know if you know that, but no. So there was always a strong sort of Inchigeela Iveleary connection around here. Then top of the street, the O'Sullivans, they're from Castonbear. Okay. And then you like the Murphys, they're from North Cork. And what you found was that people from around the city would gravitate towards the shops that were from their original, so people from around Iveleary, Macroom, and other would come to our shop, not out of a sense of supporting the local shop, but, in the days before Facebook and things, it was the way to find out, who was dead, who was getting who was being born.
Keep that connection.
Yeah, and also when people came to Cork, it was a bigger extraction back then. People didn't have many cars and that kind of thing. So people would come to the city looking for a place to live. So, it was all about connection, basically, or a job or whatever. And so there was always that sense of a trail passing through from Iveleary, Ballingeary, Gugon, Macroom. That whole area would have been very much connected to our little shop, and other shops on the street would have had the same thing.
Yeah.
But the mad thing about it, like, that hasn't changed at all, right?
Is that right?
Even though all those shops are gone and all those people are gone, right? What you now have is like, so on our street now, there's a Pakistan shop, there's a Bangladesh shop, there's a Brazilian shop, there's a Polish supermarket, there's a Russian bar, and so what you find now is those shops draw people from their part of the world who've arrived into the city. So this part of town has always been that kind of place. It's where I suppose the new guys, girls, whatever in town, it's that interface. It's the first place people arrive to, you know.
And do you feel a kind of a loss that the old Irish connection and is replaced by a global connection? Is that
the other way around? Actually, I really think it's. I think it's always about change, and it's always about embracing change, whatever that change is. You know, and certainly new people, new ideas, new blood, new food. Like the food around here, when I was a kid, as much as I loved it, right, it was all turnips and cabbage, you know. Yeah. But the food around here now was brilliant. You know, like you can get anything you want. You know, you can get really anything you want on the street, including fish and the butchers and all that kind of stuff. And that was sort of there when I was a kid, but it was very narrow in that it was all about the traditional Irish diet.
What kind of a shop? Where was your great aunt? What kind of shop was it?
See, each shop on the street, even though to the untrained eye they all looked the same, but everybody in the street knew the subtle difference. So, for example, like our place was called a dairy. So our thing would have been butter and eggs and newspapers. Like O'Sullivan's up the street, if you were to look in, it would look just like ours, but they would have been really well known for their bacon and their smoked fish, even though there was no sign saying bacon and smoked fish, but that's what they were known for. And various Hogan's across the road, their whole thing was sweets, believe it or not. That people would actually, even though we used to sell sweets, you'd be very careful not to go in on top of another shop across the road, because and vice versa, you know, you wouldn't suddenly find them starting to sell newspapers or whatever, because it's sort of neighborliness, I guess. And I think different days, I think these days there's a certain energy that businesses feel the need to own everything. Whereas I think back there seemed to be a sense that, okay, I have enough to keep me going here, right? And yeah, absolutely. Everybody has always this human covetousness to sort of do better or whatever. But I think it was more personal. That's the thing. You knew people by first name basis, so you're not going to go in there with, you know, your clogs on, like, you know. And people were very aware of the fact that that it was a mutual existence of neighbours, and often you need people anyway, you know. So, you know, that's.
That's a great picture of a time gone by. I mean, okay, so you have written very many different things, because I just read a story about you going, or not you, somebody going to Amsterdam as a 20-year-old. And
everybody goes to Amsterdam, don't they? It's all about coming home. It's all about coming back intact. Yeah.
But and also, you know, sort of marrying a beautiful, tall French lady called Yvette. Did you ever marry someone called Yvette?
That's two questions in one, right?
No, it's just one question.
No, it's just one question. It's two questions, because you asked a name and you asked an action, right?
Okay.
What I would say is the answer is, I give one answer to two questions. Yes. But there you go. You don't know where it is a better or else where it was a
No,
right.
I don't know what it is. What I'm actually aiming at is, because when I read it, I at first I believe it, and I think, no, that can't be true. It must have been a kind of, you know, the part of it is fiction and part of it is autobiography. So how does a writer deal with that kind of
Well, I tell you the truth, right? And I genuinely, right, I think, like, I don't know, because I don't know what writers do. I really haven't a clue. And I just figured
you are right.
But with my stuff, I realize that everything I do, even the most fictional stuff I do, is autobiographical. and I don't do it intentionally. It isn't like as if I want to sort of, but what I find is that the process of me putting words on the page is almost like a type of sort of self-counseling, you know. It's like trying to work things out in my own brain, right? And so realistically, if you read my stuff, you'll find that narrative story isn't that important to me. I don't care what happens at the end of anything, right? What's really important to me is the character and what's going on in their heads. And I really believe that if you have a strong enough character and they go into a shop to buy a bottle of milk, it can be epic. Whereas if you have a character doing like ding, 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 like it's just like painting by numbers or joining the dots, that doesn't really appeal to me. And like, so I know a lot of maybe some writers like to plot out where their stuff is going. I really don't. My thing is engaging with the character, what they're thinking. And in the process of that, I only have one brain. So I find, particularly now, it's 30 years on, that I've actually been plowing my own brain all the time, right? So what's coming out is, my fiction is sort of memoir. It's mostly made up stuff out of my own head, you know, and it's sort of my own experience coming out, not in a self-conscious way, but it's when I read back and say, okay, I can see what was going on there. But particularly with that little book, because that book is like almost 30 years old. And when I went back to find it, I sort of said, my God, like it sort of threw me right to a point in my life. I said, geez, I remember that, you know, and I was remembering real life experiences through the fiction. So I guess to answer your question, yeah.
Okay.
That's the answer. That's the answer to everything is yeah.
Okay, well, I have to say it's a really good read, and actually the endings are beautiful. So you suddenly arrive at an ending without even plotting it.
Well, bottled milk syndrome. Get a good bottled milk and away you go. But yeah, tis mad. Actually, I didn't even have a copy of the book. 1 second there.
Yeah, it's mirrored.
I don't have it. It's there somewhere. But actually, I didn't. I joined Facebook sort of relatively recently because I had a book out called The Immortal Deed of Michael O'Leary. And the publisher said, you know, maybe you should really go on social media. So I went on social media and I saw 1 or 2 people mention the first, if I could find it, the first edition of this that came out years ago, right? And I realized I didn't have a copy. And a few people were saying, do you have a copy? And I said, no. So I put the question out on Facebook. If anybody had a copy, I wouldn't mind one. And a few of them arrived into me. And then I decided I'd fix it up because that was published sort of before, I suppose, certainly before widespread use of computers. That's the truth of it. So, so I did a rerun on it, and it was my first time reading the book in about 30 years, and it was a bit freaky, you know. It's like, holy shit, like it was like reading your own diaries or a letter that was half written, that, you know, yeah.
But you also do extensive historical, because I was just watching the burning of Cork, and it feels like a really well-researched and objective historical, almost like, you know, a documentary.
Well, see, the mad thing is the burning of Cork and the other ones. There's a few different ones. There's one there about the shops around here. I don't know if you saw that one. It's a Christmas one, and then the boys. The thing about the burning of Cork is that it was just lingering, and nobody really knew anything about it. That's what was amazing to me, right? And I remember looking it up and finding that I found it in a school history book, and there was like one line. So this is 2005. I think since then, Irish history has moved on a lot.
Yeah.
But then Irish history was very it sort of stopped at the 1916 Rising in Dublin, and everything else just glossed over it. And I the more I sort of dug, the more I found this is sort of interesting stuff. And I suppose what was fascinating about that whole thing for me was not the fire and the destruction and the blackened hands. It was the families of the people involved, you know, meeting the Delaney's family and meeting Tomas McCurtain's granddaughter and Terence McSweeney's daughter, and just hanging out with them. At the end of the day, right, I've made a few documentaries, and the documentary is usually about something, but what it ends up being for me is about the people I meet along the way. Like I
Yeah.
think, God, and I realize that it's the product. Do you know the funny thing is, without talking, I hope I'm not talking. Am I talking too much? I hope not.
You are here to talk. I'm only here to ask some questions.
Well, the funny thing is, here's what I really, really believe, right, is that everything, including the documentaries, the books, the plays, history, politics, art, economics, even global history and global economics and global politics, right? That it's basically us as a species, because realistically, the ants and the goldfish don't care what we're at, right? Once you don't harm them, right? But it's us as a species making so much noise, and we do this consciously, right? So it's I will get on the phone to you and I'll give out about what's happening in the UK or what's happening in Brexit, and you get on the phone to me and give out the price of a head of cabbage, and this is what we do all the time, right? And I think that what it is because as a species, we are actually aware of the fact that we're on this ball of dirt flying around the sun at 1,000 miles an hour, and we're all going to die, and it's going to explode, and we're all gone, right? And I think that this whole thing that we do, all this intensity of politics and economics and global planning, I think a lot of it is just white noise that we create, I suppose, to take our mind off the inevitable, that how, like, it's like trying to make what we're doing really important, and it's not that important, because realistically what's important is far bigger than any of us or even the ants or the goldfish or whatever, right? It's and I think so for me it's all about people. So that when I get into the documentaries, I think of an idea, but then I start meeting people and I just want to hang out with them. So that's sort of the way it goes, you know.
Yeah. And do you fear death greatly?
Which?
Death.
Sorry?
You were talking about death. You said death. Everything is about avoiding death. That's
No,
what
it is about avoiding the reality that we're on this thing that's going to explode, right?
Okay, I mean, yeah, what I mean is does that worry you greatly? Do you feel
not
that
at all.
everything stops, or do you feel that there's an afterlife and you go to a different planet
Well,
or a different
you know,
dimension?
the funny thing is I don't really believe in an afterlife, you know. I don't at all, really, tell you the truth. I mean, I would love if there was, but I don't think there is, right? As much as I'd love if there was a Santa Claus, but I don't believe there is, you know. Although I have my suspicions that there might be a Santa Claus, right? Because there is, every now and again, there's a sense from around the place, but I think I saw him once or twice when I was a kid, but each time I haven't seen him in a long way. But no, I don't really have, what I have is I have a realization that this is a very finite time.
Mm.
That's how I feel, right? And it doesn't freak me out and it doesn't worry me, right? It's just that I'm well aware that this is finite, and the the ups and the downs and the worries and the celebrations, all that kind of stuff. They will just pale to pure insignificance when it is over, and so it's sort of important to keep the highs and the lows sort of, I suppose, leveled out, because I'm inclined to, as most people, go with the highs and the lows, you know. And I think there's a realization that, in my head anyway, that at the end, it's just going one direction, and just sort of half enjoy it. And I sort of miss it when it's gone. That's the truth,
Okay.
you know.
Miss it when it's gone. That suggests there is an afterlife.
No,
Okay.
no, but I miss the life when it's gone, when it's over, because I sort of enjoy it, you know. I
Yeah,
enjoy
but I mean, if it's over and there's nothing, you can't miss it. So it's a win-win situation.
No,
Either
but
there's
right now,
something that you miss.
I'm missing it in anticipation.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't fade away at all. Maybe it stays there forever.
Well, I have
But,
no idea,
like a
but
CD.
I'll come back and tell you when the time is right, I'm sure.
Yeah, come back and haunt us. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a bit of a weird ending, but it's it's almost 12 o'clock. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I really look forward to your reading, and we'll talk again at DeBarra's Clonakilty spoken word. Thank you very much, Connell.
All right, Moses, see you then. Bye-bye.